Glad Force Flex Max Strength now has bags with a 2 times stronger top for over-the-top strength. Like the kind of over-the-top strength you need when Bill breaks your bowl of buffalo chicken dip. Glad Force Flex Max Strength. Strong enough for all of life's garbage. 2 times stronger top versus 13-gallon Force Flex bags.
TaxAct knows you probably don't need help filing taxes. But if you get stuck, we have live experts you can talk to. And who knows, you could hit it off and become long-term tax friends, staying up late at night, talking about deductions, refunds, personal exemptions. Heck, you could even fall in love and create a little dependent of your own one day. Or they could just answer your filing questions. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
If you didn't know before, now you know why they call this the FunBelt.
Very excited about the FunBelt.
You know, while other conferences have been breaking up, our conference has become stronger.
The state of Sunbelt football is the strongest in our history.
I saw FunBelt Conference, and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I got to join the show. It sounds a lot of fun.
FunBelt Podcast, Season 3. I don't remember what episode we're on, but I'm Dusty Thibodeaux from Warhawk Report, Shane Mettlen from the newspaper that Jeremy Harper of Hellraiser can never remember.
I remember. It's the Daily
News. But you realize every episode you call it something different, Jeremy.
Well, all right. Is it the Daily News Record, the Daily News Reader, the Daily News? It's the Daily News something, right? And if you get those,
it's the Daily News Record. You've been getting better.
Yeah.
I don't know why Thibz had to bring it up today. You've been doing better.
Here's the thing about Thibz. He's like the Woody Woodpecker of the podcast. He's always trying to get someone else in trouble, not himself. He won't do the dirty work. He just wants to, he's trying to put something in between you and I. You and I have this great friendship, and Thibz is jealous of that. Thibz wants what we have. Well, you can't have it, Thibz. This is something that Mettlen of the Daily News Record and I have that you can never have.
Jeremy, how many times have we shared beer?
A couple times. It's been great.
Shared bowls of cheese curds.
We've done that. We've been in empty bars. Not that we've emptied out the bar. By the way, that bar is completely out of business now. They're selling all its stuff. So if you want to buy anything from the bar to commemorate our beer, it's for sale. It's for auction. You just got to go ahead and put in a bid.
That can be our new international headquarters where we host the podcast week in and week out in an empty bar.
Shane, I said, Thibz, you got to come to this bar with me. It's great. It's always packed. It's great. It's got all this energy. Get there. There's no one there. It's just me and Thibz.
You guys literally closed it down.
It was like an old man's bar. I was like, oh, God. No wonder I like it. It's quiet.
I did have a Pabst over there, speaking of which.
It was damn fine Pabst, too. You know, all right, by the way, Shane, it's one of these bars that has 1 billion beers, and he's drinking a can of Pabst. Like, why don't you pick something new, something you've never tried before?
Could he afford anything new?
I had never had that Pabst in my life.
Hey, you're from the swanky Northeast, Shane Mettlen. Do people drink Pabst in the swanky Northeast?
Yeah, I've got some in my house somewhere.
Okay, all right. What is sort of like the local cheap beer? I mean, in that region of the world, what
Yingling.
Is it Yingling?
Yeah, local cheap beer. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything that's like just associated with this part of Virginia. That's, you know, it might be Bud Light, it might be Miller Lite, it might be Natty. Who knows? Nothing
like Hams or Stag or Royal or just some sort of weird regional mass-produced beer. There's none of that?
Nothing like super regional. I mean, there's, you know, like everywhere else, there's tons of craft places that are good, but yeah, there's nothing that like really started here and branched way out. Like, you know, like my dad tells me about how back in the day, you know, he could get quarters in Kansas, but like not other places because, you know, he bordered Colorado. So like, to me, like to me, that was like blew my mind that you used to not be able to get Coors everywhere. So,
Oh no, Coors was like a delicacy in Arkansas too.
yeah.
Like to get a case of Coors, it really was the banquet beer. It was
And then I saw
Coors.
Smokey and the Bandit, and I understood the plot.
Yes, that was the plot. He had to get Coors to like a wedding banquet, right?
Yeah.
So hey, Thibz, get us back on track. What the hell are we supposed to be talking about? I know it's supposed to be the FunBelt.
No, why would we talk about that? I mean, it's just FunBelt podcast. It's no big deal, Jeremy. We're now beer connoisseurs talking about Pabst, my favorite from back in the day in Alabama of Southpaw.
Okay. Oh yeah. All right. Yeah.
And of course the champagne of beers, the High Life.
Yeah. You know
That's
what?
my
High
favorite.
Life. Is it? Do you like the High Life?
Yeah.
You know what? I loved the High Life commercials back in the early zeros. And I thought I'm going to be a High Life man because I love these commercials.
Yeah.
I bought a 6-pack of High Life, and I swear to God, it lasted the longest that any 6-pack of beer ever lasted in my fridge. I could not drink more than one at a time. I was like, I don't know what is wrong with this beer. Did I get the skunky High Life? But I did not get the best beer drinking experience from the High Life. The only worst experience I've had was Stag. Have you ever had Stag?
I don't think I have.
Surely, Thibodeaux, you've had some Stag.
Are you implying that I like cheap stuff?
Yeah. Yes, I am. I'm implying that Cregan's went out of business because you refused to pay an extra $2 for a good pint of beer. But yeah, have you had Stag?
No, have not.
Wow, it's a god-awful beer. It's a beer of my grandfather, and it sucks. Don't drink it.
So, while you're breaking out the Pabst,
Yes.
the Coors,
Mhm.
you have a reason to break it out. You have a new coach in Brian Hodgson, the Alabama assistant, looks like the strength and conditioning guy. He's now in Jonesboro getting ready to lead the Red Wolves in their resurgence. You were at the opening press conference to welcome him in. Tell us what you saw. How was that experience?
First of all, he's really big. He's just a big, oafish guy. He's really intimidating. He looks like a guy who might be a bouncer. Also, not Hodgson. It's Hodgson. Like the G just totally vanishes in his name. So if you get it wrong, he might like put you in a full Nelson. That's the kind of guy he is. But you know what? He seems like this intimidating presence. He's kind of hulking in his black suit. He's got this sort of intensity in his eyes that says he's going to tear you in half. But all he is a big softy with a lot of funny anecdotes. He like just dominated the press conference with one amusing story after another. By the end of the press conference, everybody there was just putty in his hand. He was just like he could like I don't know, cold cock the athletic director, and everybody would be like, oh, that Brian Hodgson, he's such a card. Anyway, he did a good job. He dug into the transfer portal before he even had his press announcement, dug out 3 Red Wolves that had committed themselves to the portal, pulled them out, 3 of the better guys that we really wanted to stay. So already he's kind of paying dividends for the Arkansas State Red Wolves. So we're happy to have him. He claims to be the kind of blue collar guy. He seems to be living up to that. And so we're excited. It's great. So he's part of the FunBelt community, just like a couple other new coaches.
Yeah. The South Alabama Jags got a new coach in Yolisha Jackson from South Florida. She was an assistant there. Now going to lead that South Alabama program, a place where she had actually been an assistant just a few years ago. So always good to see a good homecoming. She was there in Mobile, leading them to 2 20-win seasons and 2 postseason appearances, including the WNIT and the Women's Basketball Invitational.
You know, when we talked to Craig Stevenson a couple weeks ago offline, he was so depressed about women's basketball at South Alabama. He was like, I don't even watch anymore. It's been awful. Let us hope that this new coach is able to turn things around, bring back some of that magic that she had beforehand, because South Alabama could really use it.
Yeah, I did just see her name on a list for the mid-major assistant coach of the year. So, I mean, seems to have a good reputation coming in a coming back to South Alabama.
She is going to rescue the Jags from the basement of women's basketball in the Sun Belt.
The other person celebrating a new head coach, the Thundering Herd. They have hired Kim Stevens, who comes up from the D2 ranks to take over the Herd program. She's a baller. She was at Glenville State, where she turned the Pioneers into a powerhouse, compiling a 191-24 record. Including,
can you repeat those numbers? Repeat that number again before I pass out.
191-24.
God.
Including a semifinal berth in the Division II Final Four. That season, they were only 33-3.
Man, that is just a lot of wins. I don't care what division you're in. That's some winning basketball right there.
I like the smaller schools in seeing that success, because it's a lot harder, I'm sure, to recruit to a Glenville State than to Marshall, than to Arkansas State, South Alabama, ULM, wherever. If you can get the good talent there and put up those kind of numbers, you're going to succeed once you do have those resources and those facilities behind you.
One of the things that scares me about Brian Hodgson, he comes out of Alabama assistant. We all know Alabama's had this great year, did wonders in recruiting. That's great. And Hodgson's known as this recruiter. And that's great. But, now you're at Arkansas State, where you can't just go, oh, yes, Crimson Tide, and people are going to come in. You've actually got to work your ass off. So that will really put us to the test. And that's why I like when I hear this Kim who?
Kim Stevens.
Kim Stevens, that she comes from the D2 ranks, wins all these games as a head coach. She knows what it's like to be a head coach. It's not, I'm an assistant and my job is to do a very particular thing. It is to lead the team. And so in a way, I'm a little worried about Hodgson because he's never been a head coach. Now, does that mean he's going to fail, that he's not going to be a great head coach? I don't know. I mean, time will tell. We've seen assistants all the time, including the one from Kansas State. What's his name? He's got a great name. It's like
Jerome Tang.
Yeah, Jerome Tang. Yeah, he's been assistant all of his life. Now he's the head coach and he's kicking ass. So yes, you can be an assistant and then become a head coach for the first time and do really well. But that was one of the things that I think some of the fan base were worried about after his presser. We felt really good. But wow, what a record for Kim. Absolutely big steal, I think, for Marshall.
You mentioned that, and I had to take a look, because the only one I could think of off the top of my head of a guy that, for lack of a better term, goes from the big school to the mid-major was John Brady when he stepped back from LSU to go to Arkansas State.
Yeah.
There for 8 years, 4 winning records, 2 Western Division titles.
Yeah.
But I remember talking to him even in Hot Springs at a Sunbelt Conference Media Day and asking him, what's really the biggest difference that you see going from that premier stage back to the mid-majors? And he's like, resources.
Yeah.
And instead of a plane ride to go play this school, it's a bus ride. So your guys are a little bit more tired, a little bit more fatigued. And instead of maybe staying at the 5-star resort type of place that you're staying at, the 3-star place, because that's all that really is available in that city.
Yeah.
And so it was an interesting take to kind of see what he even spun as the big differences between the programs.
Another thing too is, and I see this in football. I just can only imagine this is in basketball too. But you see in Alabama and they hire 1 million assistants, and that's kind of become like a norm, is to hire all these assistants. And you're like, what do you need with all these assistants? Well, it turns out having all that valuable experience to do some of the minute things, whether it is, all right, I'm your left tackle guy, he's your right tackle guy. I mean, that's to me is a big difference. You have Arkansas State or ULM or perhaps even JMU basketball, and you just have a limited number for what assistants you can hire. I imagine there are some volunteers on those teams. I know that's the way it works in baseball. Baseball, it's actually even worse. So yeah, you have these high profile programs. Yeah, I always get kind of amused when the Oh gosh, what's the name of the coaching, the Broyles Award? Are you familiar with the Broyles Award, guys?
The
Yeah.
assistant Heisman.
Yeah, rewards the best assistant coach, and it always goes to some Power 5 guy. I'm like, how hard is it to coach some of these guys? I mean, they're all 4-star, 5-star athletes. You're like, oh God, you did such a great job. I can coach those guys. You know, it doesn't take magic. You try coaching a bunch of 2-star guys and get a winning team out of that. That's where it lies.
Yeah. One thing I like about the Hodgson hire, and correct me wrong, he's been with Oates since Buffalo, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So he's been on the mid-major train before.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a culture shock for him. I remember covering the CAA before the Sun Belt. UNC Wilmington had a coach who was a UNC Tar Heel assistant for a long time and played at Kansas for Roy Williams. All he knew was the absolute two of the top 3 programs in the country. Was all he knew was how they operated. And then he failed at UNC Wilmington. And it's some other coach told me, he's like, he knows everything there is to know about basketball. He didn't know what it was like to get on a bus and ride 8 hours after a tough loss. And there's a lot to that.
That's what we get in the Hodgson. I keep putting in that G. He's going to kick my ass. But Hodgson he is the product of the foster care system. So he kind of has this sort of hard scrabbled life where he's gone. He says it really made him to where he got to know all kinds of people. And 2, he worked at a small college before going to Buffalo. And what happened, I think it was Bobby Hurley was actually coaching Buffalo at the time and said, Hodgson, I want you to come work with me. We've had this great season. I like what you're doing at Marxist or wherever you are. Come aboard, or Marist, come aboard. I'd like to have you on as assistant. He said, great. He gets there to Buffalo, and Bobby Hurley's like, hey, I got some bad news for you. I'm actually going to now coach Arizona. It's my dream job. They told me I have to keep the assistants that's already there. I can't bring you over. So he said, shit. So then Oates comes aboard. Oates might have been an assistant at Buffalo at the time. I don't know. And Oates says, you know what? All right. I will keep you aboard if you can fill 5 scholarship positions for me before the start of the season. They had 5 open positions. And Hodgson did it. It was like a feat of Hercules, right? He found 5 guys and they had a good season. So he knows what it's like to put in the work. Ride the buses, as you said, Shane, share an office with a bunch of other sweaty guys, maybe have a second job at the Waffle House to make ends meet. I mean, that's really how small college basketball is like. Hopefully Arkansas State can give him some amenities that he's not used to, although he won't get Alabama amenities, but it's going to be really good. You know what's actually really good, Shane?
I don't know where you're going with this. What?
Winning 75 series in a row in softball. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Arkansas State.
No, we don't have a softball program, and you know that, Thibz. What you are trying to do is put another wedge between me and Mettlen. Mettlen and I were having a very good conversation about softball, and you're like, oh, I'll be Woody Woodpecker, and I'm going to bring up the fact that Arkansas State doesn't have a softball team. Well, let me tell you something. I'm going to have a nice conversation about softball, and I'm going to I'll get back to you. Who in the Sun Belt, and Shane, you can answer it too if you think you know. Who in the Sun Belt has won 75 consecutive series?
That would be the Raging Cajuns from Lafayette, Louisiana.
That is an incredible number. I saw that posted on Twitter, and they posted out like what was the number 1 song and what was the number 1 movie at the time. Of course, I can't remember any of it, but it was like, God damn, that was a long time ago.
It was a decade ago.
Yeah. I mean, who remembers anything that happened 10 years ago? So Shane, not Thibz, but Shane, let me ask you this. What is the one team standing in the way of the Cajuns adding to that number?
the team that's in the way this weekend. I don't know if they're the only team, but up next is the James Madison Dukes
And what
in Harrisonburg. I'm going to go to at least one of those games and see if that streak survives. Because
did I see the Dukes have like 3 losses? Did I see that?
No, they've got a few. I think they're 20-7 now.
Oh, okay, but still an impressive record.
Yeah,
so,
they're coming along. They're a young team. They've completely rebuilt the roster since going to the College World Series 2 years ago, and you're seeing some of those big time recruits they got based on that are now freshmen, and now they've played about half a season, and they are kind of starting to put it together.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if they can end this streak, but I know there's going to be a lot of JMU fans in the stands this weekend, hoping they can end this streak and hoping that they show they can compete in Sunbelt softball, which is a huge step up from the Colonial softball.
Thibz, this is where you and I have an intervention with Shane. All right. It's time for some real talk for Shane. Mettlen, you're about to step into the world of the Cajuns right now. This is their sandbox. Softball with the Cajuns is they rule. You need to tread lightly when you offer even the mildest criticism, because they will come after you. Thibz, am I right?
See. Sorry, I thought I was still in Guatemala from last week. Yeah, they are definitely one of the more vocal, rabid fan bases in the league. And while they're not in the Carolinas, Shane, they will still have the same wrath of your favorite states.
Well, I am not knocking them. That is a incredible.
Are they not
program.
Good enough for you to knock? Is that what you're saying? That they don't rate your disdain even? Oh my God, Shane, calm it down.
No, I just,
The rhetoric.
This series is actually something that JMU fans have been looking forward to, because, JMU had a lot of success in softball in the Colonial. They beat up on a weak league, but they made their regional and super regional appearances and then finally broke through the College World Series. They were down last year after losing all that talent. They think they're climbing back. I don't know if they're ready to compete with Louisiana yet, but it's something they're looking forward to, like finding out where they stack up against, legit Sunbelt competition and what this conference is going to be like for a softball program that completely dominated where they were before, but they know was not a good conference.
Wow. You know what? I think you said the right word, Shane. We're very measured with that reply, and I think that could take you a long way. I have a question though, in terms of the program itself. You guys won that, or not won it, but you were in that World Series. You were talking about recruiting from that. We talked about Coastal Carolina getting that kind of bump. Did the program really receive like enough recognition to where it's like, wow, we're suddenly getting recruits that we would never have gotten had we not had that success?
To some degree. And it's, when they really started breaking through and having success, it was they had a All-American pitcher who was from 15 miles outside Harrisonburg and wasn't really recruited very highly, but was a super athlete, and turned out she could both pitch and hit a softball extremely well. They have, their all-time home run leader is from the next county up. They somehow kind of lucked into having generational talent right at home. And now they're expanding and going out and recruiting other people. And, freshman who's really good this year, their name is KK Mathis. She's just hitting the cover off the ball. She was, I think, one of their first like top 15 national recruit. And they've got a pitcher coming in next year that's from Virginia, but not local, similar level recruit that they're just starting to get. And the thing about spring sports is you make that run that ends in June. You're not immediately bringing in freshmen the next season based off that. So it's 2, sometimes 3 years after you make that run in a spring sport before you're even seeing them on campus, let alone seeing them developed into, a stud junior or senior. So
good observation. Yeah,
that's
I didn't think of it that way.
That is kind of the one thing with JMU, like they're in the start of rebuilding after having, like I said, just generational talent a few years ago.
So let's talk a little bit about tidbits. Just tidbits, nuggets around the Sun Belt. Shane, I've noticed today on the waiver wire, a set of brothers have left the Sun Belt to join something like, what was it? LMI, LS, LIS, LS,
LIU.
LIU. I don't even know what LIU is. The Strickland brothers?
Yes.
We got one from JMU and one from Georgia Southern?
Yes. Their father, Rod Strickland, played 17 years in the NBA, is the coach at LIU. He'll be starting his second season at LIU, and he needed some help, and he called his wife, I think, to get it. I don't know.
He said, "Boys to me."
Yeah,
that's okay. That's funny. At Arkansas State today, the women's head coach, Destiny Rogers, called up her sister. She was playing at West Virginia, and now she is now a Red Wolf. So I guess it's good to have some talent in the family. You just bring it in. Yeah. And maybe that's the key. Maybe that you just hire a coach. Shane, now does that always work out when you have maybe a coach or let's say an offensive coordinator who has, I don't know, a son who plays quarterback? Is that always a good thing to have happen?
I'm not sure. Who are you referring to here? I'm trying to think.
Thibz, maybe. Maybe Thibz would know. Like if you had like an offensive coordinator, Thibz, and maybe his son plays quarterback and suddenly has an inside track to being the starter of the team. Is that always a good thing?
I haven't seen where it worked out. There were definitely a lot of daddy ball and other inferences in the fan base of the school that you were speaking of.
Yes.
However, I still remember Todd Dodge with his best ever line when asked how he was recruiting a 3-star player to the really down in the dumps North Texas school. And his response is, well, when you sleep with his mother, you kind of get the inside track.
Yes, that is the most North Texas thing I have ever heard. That is mean green recruiting, right there. I love it. What else is going on in the Sun Belt, Thibz? Your fingers are always on the pulse of the Sun Belt.
Just wrapping up baseball. It's definitely a feast or famine right now in the standings.
Okay. All right, fine. Let's go. Come on, Thibz. Let's talk about baseball. It's your show.
Old Dominion and the Raging Cajuns sit at 5-1, tied atop the standings. Coastal Carolina, App State, Georgia Southern, all 4-2. James Madison 2-2. Troy, Texas State, Southern Miss 3-3. Everyone else with a losing record, including Arkansas State and ULM, winless.
Oh yes, that's
in conference action.
I did see that Coastal Carolina knocked off. Was it North Carolina?
The Powder Blue.
Yeah, the number 13 team. So that was a good win for the Sun Belt. I think as we speak, Southern Miss, I think, is entangled with Ole Miss. And last I saw, Southern Miss was winning that game. So that would be nice to win that game. ULM is still winless like the Red Wolves?
Yeah, it was a tough trip. Hosted Old Dominion, then traveled to Troy. Warhawks did not look very good down in Lower Alabama and sit at 0-6.
Yeah, it's been rough for the Red Wolves. We had a lot of weather in Jonesboro. It threatened to cancel our slate against James Madison. And maybe, we're kind of relieved about that. They managed to scrub out one game on a Monday. Was it Monday or Sunday?
I think it was Sunday.
It was Sunday, okay. And it was one of these games where it was tied up 4-4 in the ninth. They had to go to extra innings. Somehow, the Dukes put up 5 runs in their section of the ninth. And it was yet another loss for Arkansas State. So, yeah, all the excitement we have about basketball was enough to eclipse the disappointment of baseball. But eventually the reality of baseball is going to show up. I got one more tidbit that I know that's going to excite you. Are you ready?
Yes.
Sure.
A-State Bowling won the Southland. Siding, thrilling final match with Sam Houston State to seal it all. We had one woman on the team whose name suddenly escapes me, rolled 7 strikes in a row. It was incredible action, high drama. Tomorrow night, or at least late afternoon, 4:00 Eastern time. I always forget when that is. Is that 5 o'clock us or is that 3 o'clock us? I don't ever know. The Eastern time is just some weird phantom zone for me. But at 4:00 Eastern, NCAA is going to stream the bowling selection show. And I invite all of you to watch it, to watch Arkansas State, see where they're seated in the NCAA tournament, which is just exciting. It's March Madness, but it's bowling.
Also women's sports. Softball.
Unsilent.
Marshall, undefeated at 4-0.
All right.
But 3 teams really tied atop the standings, having played 6 games. James Madison, the Raging Cajuns, South Alabama, all 5-1. Troy 5-1-1. ULM 3-3. Everyone else losing record. Southern Miss goose and 6 on the season.
Well, aside from those guys, it sounds like there's a lot of parity on top. It's a little top heavy. It is the Dolly Parton of conference standings. Something's got to give, right? And it's probably going to start giving when JMU hooks up with the Cajuns, right?
I think that's going to be a fantastic series. Shane streamed on ESPN3, I'm assuming.
2 of the 3 games,
Okay.
Friday and Sunday.
Okay, we should check that out.
Those were the only days you were available for commentary.
No, they have a big lacrosse match on Saturday that's getting the ESPN attention instead.
Yeah, how are the Dukes doing in lacrosse? Are they still hammering it?
Yeah, 10 in a row.
Yeah,
Ranked number 5 in the country. Yeah.
You know, A-State Bowling's ranked number 4, but
Yeah.
This is not a competition.
Okay.
It's just we're not going to do this tit for tat. That's self-defeatist, self-destructive. We're not going to have that conversation, except Arkansas State is ranked number 4th in the nation.
Yeah.
But all right, so the good things are happening in the Sun Belt. Thibz, give us one more tidbit. Come on, just dig deep.
Quick update in Sunbelt baseball. Southern Miss, Ole Miss. Southern Miss was leading 2-1 in the bottom of the 4th.
Yeah.
Then the rain came. The game is a no contest.
Oh, that is so like Ole Miss to call up the weather guys and bring in some rain and save their asses. Ole Miss are ranked number 1.
Another case, the has versus the have-nots. They can control the weather. We cannot.
We can't. G5 doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks. Do we want to talk a little bit about the Final Four matchup? How there's not but one Power 5 program in the Final Four this year? And let me tell you, I've been hearing stuff like, "Oh, well, nobody's going to be watching." I'm telling you, this tournament has been one of the more entertaining tournaments I've watched in a long time. A lot of 1-point games or single-digit games, not a lot of blowouts. There have been some when UConn is involved, for instance. But for the most part, to me, been a very I think I've watched more NCAA tournament basketball games this year than I've had since I've been in college. Guys, what have you thought of this tournament so far? And what do you think of this Final Four?
I'm very excited about it. Because first of all, you had another 16-1 game with Fairleigh Dickinson. Anytime the little guy wins, I'm all for it.
Absolutely.
Second of all, we are guaranteed that a mid-major will play for a national title, as it will be either a Conference USA or Mountain West team in the championship game against arguably a bigger opponent there of the ACC or Big East. Yep. So I love it. Go mid-major.
You know, so we look at Creighton, right? They're the Big East team. Are they a mid-major?
It would be UConn is the Big East.
Oh, I'm sorry, not Creighton.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yes, but is UConn a mid-major?
No.
Yeah, they've won several tournaments, so can't call them a mid-major. But they're not the SEC. They're not the ACC. They're not the Big East. They're not Pac-12. They're not Big 12.
The Big East is not a mid-major in basketball. I mean, there's 6 major conferences in basketball, and the Big East is one of them.
And I would argue even that the Big East is the SEC football big of basketball traditionally.
I think so. I think you could be right about that. What do you think of all right? What do you think of FAU? Are they a team that's hot at the right time? Although they won like 33 games to end the season before they got into the tournament. Or are they legit? And I'll give you my thought. I think they're legit. I love their big Russian center. I love their outside shooting. Could they win this tournament?
Well, of course you love the big Russian center.
Because I know JMU has like 5 or 6 big Russians on that women's team.
I have one, but yeah. I think they could. I think any of the 4 teams left in it could. I mean, I think UConn's probably the strong favorite right now, but wouldn't be shocked if any of the 4 that are left win it. It's not like some of those times when the mid-majors gotten through to the Final Four, you kind of knew the run was up. They had a couple good weeks. They never experienced anything like that. They weren't great all season, but they had a couple really hot weeks. And, San Diego State has been a good program for a long time. Yeah. And FAU, this is all new to them, but they've been dominant all year. This is, they've been a top 25 team all year. This is not really just getting hot at the right time necessarily.
Who do you think? You said UConn. I'm kind of leaning a little bit towards Miami. Although I've seen UConn just dominate everybody they play. I don't know why I like Miami. I'm kind of rooting for FAU. I think if I had my root coin on anybody else, it would be FAU. Thibz, who do you like in this tournament? Who's going to win it?
I do not like FAU basketball. I watch it. They are clunky. They are just bad fundamental basketball in my eyes, but it works for them.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
I like FAU, kind of like what Shane said, that they've never been here. I don't think that they know that they're supposed to lose. I don't think they know that they're supposed to be nervous. I don't think that they know that they're lucky to be where they are. In addition to that, they get none of the money because they've already said they're going to the American. So they're going all out to ensure and show them, look what you're missing out on. And American, we see you. We'll be there next year. I love that. I really think it'll be a FAU and the U in the championship game.
Wow.
Ironically, it's the best player in the FunBelt that wins a national title for the U.
Norchad O'Meara, man, let me tell you, everybody at Arkansas State, a mixture of feelings. Happy for Norchad. Good for you. We see your big smiling face on national TV, getting big interviews, getting big minutes, making big plays. Man, we wish we had you back. Oh my God, it hurts so bad. But that's the way it is. And we're happy to see him succeeding so well. And we wish him the very best. I do like the way Miami plays. They seem to have just 5 really good starters out there. And I kind of agree with what you say, Thibz, about FAU. Yeah, it can be just a mess at times. Like if they're not hitting the threes, it's kind of a cluster, right? But then they just start hitting threes. Like all of a sudden they'll just start nailing 4 or 5 threes at once, and they're back in the game or they're leading it. So Shane, who's your guy? You think it's UConn?
I think it's UConn, but I mean, I was really high on Texas, and then Miami beat them. So,
by the way, I don't want to brag, but in the FunBelt PC bracket challenge, I'm in 3rd place. So
I will fix that.
Shane had like a top notch for a while. I don't know what happened to you, Shane.
Teams I picked started losing. They were winning and then they started losing.
I think in our bracket, one person picked UConn and another person picked Miami. So we got like two guys that have a Final Four pick in play. Other than that, everybody's kind of screwed. So
speaking of not being screwed, though, Jeremy,
yeah,
we have a great guest coming up.
All right, because you kind of hinted at it. I'm a little excited. Who is it? Do you want to give us a hint?
Sorry, I can't get that excited. I mean, it's Maxwell George, our NIL student athlete, giving us the inside scoop on the outdoor track season at Troy. Jeremy, we haven't heard from him in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's been disappointing.
But our student athlete, Maxwell George, joins us fresh off of his 30th place finish amongst the SEC at Auburn to open the track season of the outdoor track season, I should say.
Not the indoor, the outdoor.
The outdoor.
That's a big difference.
Mostly the roof.
No, I'll tell you a difference. And Maxwell, you can back me up on this, right? Like I was watching an indoor event the other day. It was like I don't know, like a women's like 400 or something. And they're racing like hell around the track. I mean, they got the jets going, running fast, and then they cross the finish line, and then they pretty much run into a wall.
Yes. I've never ran indoor personally, but it's like a circus almost. Like they kind of like get us in there, you run in, and they like push you off immediately. From what I've seen and from my teammate has told me, it's like it's kind of a cluster of everything. It's just like it's as fast as you get in there and get out because there's so many people doing it at one time.
Now, Maxwell, how is it that you don't run indoor? Why did you make that decision?
So Troy actually doesn't have a Sunbelt men's indoor team. For the Title IX, that's where we got cut off at. So there's no men's indoor team for Troy. We have women's indoor, but we can't compete in the Sunbelt Championship for men's.
I gotcha. So now it's outdoor season.
Yes.
From what I understand, the meets have started.
Yes.
And now it seems like Thibz has the 411 on that. Thibz, what do you know about this outdoor meet?
I know our guy. He refused to wear the Troy jersey. He wore the FunBelt podcast jersey.
Holy hell! Oh my God, he represents us.
So he was at a disadvantage already. Maybe that's why they put him way in the back. And he just, it's like the rest of us. He was just too far behind. He couldn't catch up, and thus the later finish in the race.
All right,
it was my best race by far.
Maxwell, let me issue this challenge, and maybe this is a bit of punishment for not seeing us last week, and this is fine. But we're going to issue a wool FunBelt running sweater.
Okay,
you got to wear in the next meet. It's going to be about knee length, and you got to wear it. You can't like roll up the sleeves or anything. It has to be all the way. Like it's like minus 20 degrees. And you've got to run whatever events that you're in for that day. You've got to run in it. It's FunBelt Podcast running sweater.
I'll drop my address and y'all send it to me and I'll wear it.
Well, we got to get Shane Mettlen to knit it first.
I think running sweater is a term you just invented here. I've never heard of article of clothing before.
We're always cutting edge.
Back in the 1920s, that's what people wore. That was
okay.
So, Maxwell, on a serious note, though, the football team has started getting sized for rings. When you see another sport like that getting measured up, does that kind of give you the little bit of extra motivation of, hey, I'm ready for mine as well?
No, it definitely does. And I think I think all the sports teams, you can see there's kind of just a different swagger in the sense. It's like we've seen even going back like a year or two when we saw our girls win the conference championship. And then for basketball, and then our men's doing it in the fall, it kind of gives like the campus a better vibe, and it kind of instills confidence. It's like, hey, people that you see on a day-to-day basis, it gives you confidence in the sense that like, hey, I can achieve this too because I see other people have done it, and that this is it's not an impossible conference to win.
So with that said, it's spring football Have you gone to Coach Summerlin yet and said, Coach, I'm ready to trade in the track shoes for some cleats, some pads?
If I know back in my day, if I would have decided to play football a little bit longer, I think I could have played a mean tight end for Coach Summerall. So maybe I should before I leave.
Now, you know what? I think Coach Summerall has enough guys. We don't need to be putting Maxwell on that team and making them into like superstars. We can't have
Keep it fair for everybody.
Yeah, keep it fair for the rest of us. That would be great.
So what else is happening on campus? I know you said good old IFC party coming up. Definitely living it up there as the student athlete.
Nothing really. We're doing things for Greek life, and then outside of that, like mostly just tracking stuff for me.
And study,
crazy,
right? You're doing your studies, right?
Study. Well, I'm a senior, so I don't really. Yes, studies. Well, being a senior, I have like one class, so it's not that rigorous.
All right. Can I ask you, what is that class?
It is intercultural communications.
Yes, that sounds badass.
It's super easy. We just talk about how we communicate effectively across different cultures and accept different cultures and their communication styles and things like that.
Do you brag about being on the podcast in the class?
Yes.
Right answer. Yeah, you get an A.
I want to see some proof of that. We need some papers.
I can rewrite my final project to be about this podcast. Diversification across all the Sunbelt schools.
All right. Can we let Maxwell go back to his Greek life?
I think so. I mean, he wants to leave this fraternity for his. I don't know what else we can do.
I think we busted his balls enough about missing the podcast last time. He kind of made us feel bad saying he's been fighting the flu. But I think you've done your penance, Maxwell, and we appreciate you being on the show.
Appreciate it. I'll see y'all next week.
So there was Maxwell, a good fraternity guy, going to his IFC event, being the good student athlete, running track, being the social butterfly on campus. Were either of y'all in fraternities in college?
I was not.
No. Arkansas State had a fairly good Greek community. It's actually much bigger now, but at the time I was there, I was like, I that's not really for me. Shane?
I was not in Greek life either.
Is it because we were both dorks?
Mine was, I don't know. There's several reasons. One was mainly because I transferred from a JUCO to a large university. So coming in as a junior, I didn't feel any need to join a fraternity.
Absolutely. But Thibz, you were in a fraternity, right?
I was.
And how was it?
It was great. It's fun.
Yeah. Now, like sometimes fraternities, like the Greek system as a whole, gets a bad rep. Like there's too much hazing, too much drinking, too much malfeasance. Did you see any of that?
I plead the fifth. It was a good time.
Let me tell you something, though, that almost every guy I know that's been in a fraternity, they always say they were Animal House. They always say it. Doesn't matter how nice the house was, if they had a butler, if they had limousines, if it was like the straight A students and the football players were there, was like, we were like Animal House. We really were. Now, Thibz, were you really like Animal House?
I'll give you one story of when how I met actually a guy that was a groomsman in my wedding. Was on our bid night. He shows up. Hey, how are you? Good, cool. The Monroe police roll up to try to find said individual because apparently he had missed too many drills of National Guard duty protecting us from the great state of Mississippi. Ran through the fraternity house, out the back window, up the tree, zip-lined across to escape, said Monroe police officers.
Now, is this a fraternity story, Thibz, or is this just a common everyday Louisiana Monroe story? Because Monroe, they're under the Napoleonic Code. It's not real law. I don't know what happens in Louisiana. Cops just show up and put you in the cuffs for no reason. There's no Miranda rights. There's no system of justice other than like this boss hog justice that you end up having to sing at the local tavern to pay off your debts. Are you sure that this is a fraternity story, or is it not just this is how society is in Monroe, Louisiana.
Oh, there's no doubt. That's definitely a Louisiana, Monroe, Louisiana type of story for sure. It just so happened it happened at the fraternity house, I guess you could say.
Hey, do you remember Boss Hogg? And he that's how he would like speed trap country music stars, and then they would have to sing a set at the I forget the name of the bar that they had down there, but that's how they had to pay off their speeding tickets. Remember that scam that Boss Hogg had going on?
That explains why.
Did you guys not even watch Dukes of Hazzard?
That explains why you thought it was karaoke night when we were in New Orleans for Sunbelt Media Days last year.
You guys are killing me.
You know what kills me, Jeremy?
What's that?
Plugs, promos, and parting shots. Shane, lead us off.
It sustains me.
Well, this doesn't even really fit as a parting shot so much, but I have a question for you guys now. This popped into my head. What is your best fraternity movie? we mentioned Animal House. Is that
Isn't that the only fraternity movie?
You could argue a movie like The Skulls about the secret societies of the Ivy League.
Is School Ties?
Revenge of the Nerds.
Old
School.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Even Monsters Inc. Or no.
Monsters University. Yeah, that's not a bad one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it my favorite, but
no, but it's still, at first I was like, there's only one fraternity movie. We've just named off more than half a dozen. All right. I'll start with that. I love Animal House. It's like it was one of those 3 movies that came out that were like, to me, like the trio of the best late 70s, early 80s movies of all time. It was like Caddyshack, Blues Brothers, Animal House. You have to rank those 3 movies. What were the best of those 3? And Animal House, to me, it's always Blues Brothers, Animal House, and then Caddyshack at the bottom. But Revenge of the Nerds, you cannot discount an argument for Revenge of the Nerds. So much going on in that movie. So many great stars. John Goodman as the coach. That's always the best to see. Thibz, help me out with this. What do you think?
Old School. I love some Will Ferrell. How many times do you hear we're going streaking or I love you, Blue, you're my boy? It's a classic.
Yeah, there's a mud wrestling scene in that I really enjoy, or oil wrestling, or whatever the hell they were wrestling in.
But was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
Yeah. All right, let's think about that, Thibz. Are the quotable quotes in Old School, do they stack or measure up to the quotable quotes in Animal House?
I think so, because I've had several people look at me crazy when they're like, Germans? I don't think that was them.
Getting old. That's the newest generation. They're not familiar with Animal House. Old School is their Animal House. Yeah,
I think that's a fair way to put it.
So Shane, you made us answer this question.
Yeah.
Well, what's your answer to that?
I mean, I was gonna say Animal House, but I think you summed it up perfectly. Like in our 40s or older, it's Animal House. If you're younger, then it's Old School now.
Oh, okay. All right. So Revenge of the Nerds doesn't play at all in there. Okay.
It's an honorable mention.
They developed a javelin that worked with Lamar's limp-wristed throwing action.
Yeah. Some things didn't age well.
You could not get away with that kind of stuff today.
No. Some of Revenge of the Nerds did not age well.
Great character. I love Lamar. All right. I'm going to jump into it. I'm going to do my parting shot and plug so that you have to go last. Are you okay with that?
I feel as if I have no choice.
I don't want you reaching through my computer and throttling me. All right, my parting shot and it's not really even a plug or a part. I guess it is. It sort of is. I have been monitoring the transfer portal for the Sun Belt in terms of basketball. Have you guys been monitoring it all?
Yeah, a little bit.
You've been keeping up. I think there's a pretty big name for ULM, is it, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. I'm trying to find him. Thomas Howell.
Thomas Howell.
Yeah. I always thought a guy named Howell should be playing at Arkansas State. Because Howell. Wolves. Maybe that's where he's going. He might be on his way. A few guys from JMU is on this list. There are 36 players that I've counted on the Sunbelt transfer portal. So it grows every day. It's like the Blob. Have you ever watched the Blob, like the 1960s version with a 30-year-old Steve McQueen playing a teenager? Have you seen this movie?
Was it swell?
Yeah. The Blob is swell. Yeah, but the Blob, it eat somebody, get a little bit bigger, eat something else, get a little bigger. That's what the transfer portal is. It gets bigger every day. And it's always kind of interesting to see who comes in, who comes out. Right now, it's kind of funny because the NCAA tournament's winding down. Suddenly you're seeing people from more of the high-profile schools jumping in. But the Sun Belt's kind of started off early. There's a lot of guys coming in. So I've gone ahead and compiled them. I'll be monitoring it for the next couple months. You can go on to howlraiser.com. I think the story is called the Sunbelt Basketball Portal is a slow talent drain. You should check it out. See if you guys have any names on it that you don't want to see. I'll be monitoring where not only people leaving, but where they go to. So check it out. howlraiser.com. Hard work.
Jeremy, we've definitely been kind of the bottom dwellers of the Sun Belt here in recent years, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Yes.
Did the fans at Arkansas State ever say, we don't belong in the Sun Belt? We should go somewhere else, maybe the Southland or the Gulf States Conference of Division II, the Lone Star of Division III. Do those discussions ever come up?
Every now and then, some of the old timers, like the 60, 70-year-olds will kind of say something like to the effect of, oh, those were good years when back in the butt fart league that we're in, we'd win every year. But no serious ever discussion of dropping down. Why do you ask, Thibz? This is weird.
With ULM's 0-6 start to baseball,
yes,
the woe is me crowd has returned.
Oh, those guys.
When I started looking at the numbers, ULM, should they decide, okay, we're done with the Sun Belt, we're going Southland, would not rank near the top of the budget of the Southland.
Oh, no.
And yet in most sports, except for women's tennis, do not have a winning record against the Louisiana Southland schools. Why the hell would you want to not only take a budget cut because your money games are going to be worthless, your media rights are going to be worthless, you can't sell advertising for as much, and not be able to compete?
I imagine that these people that are advocating for the drop down feel like they're not looking at it, we won't be able to compete. They feel like they've been hardened by the crucible of being in the Sun Belt, and any team would immediately just take over the Southland or the OVC or whatever smaller conference we go to. But I think it all goes down to people hate losing. Shane, let me tell you something. People hate to lose. Arkansas State's the same way. I mean, the fan base right now is just in a fragile, psychotic state. Like they are ready to riot in the streets if we have another performance in football or basketball, and right now in baseball that we're having right now. So yeah, I think it's kind of like a natural reaction, Thibz, to go, oh, let's go back down to where we can at least win. We just want to win. We don't care if no one sees it happen. We just want to compete. Is that how you feel, Thibz? That it's just we're tired of losing. We just want to find some little brothers to beat up.
Definitely tired of losing, but still a proud member of the Sun Belt. I think new athletic director John Hartwell is the right guy to right the ship. I will say, though, I think the ship is going to take on some more water before it starts coming out of the water and hopefully set and sail.
What did Harvey Dent say in The Dark Knight?
Alfred, get my car.
Oh, he said it's always darkest before the dawn. That's what's going to happen at ULM. You know, you're going to go through some tougher times. You know, you're cleaning out the house. You're getting rid of the chaff. And pretty soon you're going to have the squeaky clean program. You'll be flush with cash. You have a huge NIL collective, a fan base that is suddenly affluent, a bunch of lawyers and doctors, perhaps. The school is going to be in great shape.
I just heard you say dark and made me hope they keep a light on for us.